In a previous video I was showing you how the infinite pattern that you can see on screen at the moment, which is kind of formed of squares and rectangles which together make L's, how that informs the 5 patterns you may be already familiar with that you can use to play pentatonic scales at any position in any key on the guitar fretboard. I'm following on from that. I just want to talk about how this affects fingering. Effectively what this means is that if it weren't for the fact that the B and G strings are tuned slightly closer together, this is what would happen. You would start ascending through a pentatonic scale in a zigzagging pattern. Then when you came to the top of one of these L formations, your hand would move towards the nut, and then you would begin another one, and you'd go up 5 strings, and then you would reach the end of the L formation, and then you would move back 1 step towards the nut, and so on and so on. Actually, we've got only 6 strings, and we need to compensate for the fact that the second and the third strings are tuned closer together than any other pair. The B and G strings on a guitar in standard tuning are tuned 4 semitones apart, whereas all the other pairs are 5 semitones apart. Effectively what that does is slightly distort these patterns. The effect is in 4 out of 5 of these patterns you're going to change fretboard position twice. Once you're going to kind of go diagonally that way. Depending whether you're ascending or descending, you'll go up that way or down that way. And that will be because you reach the top of an L or the bottom of an L. And the other thing that is going to happen is you'll move diagonally in the opposite direction, up that way. It's because you're ascending in pitch, because the high notes are at the top and the low notes are at the bottom. If it's that way, it's because you're playing a descending run. And that's going to be because you cross from the G string to the B string, or vice versa. So here we have those 5 strips of fretboards, those 5 overlapping strips of fretboard. You know, you see that these 6 notes here are actually the same as these 6 notes here, and these 6 notes here are the same as these 6 notes here, and that's why I say they're overlapping. And what I'm looking at here is an F minor pentatonic, which would sound like this. That was this position here, and then this one here, and then this one here, and so on. I mean, you can hear that I'm actually playing the same scale, and a lot of the same notes are reappearing in each of these patterns. It's just as you move up the fretboard, because the guitar is an instrument where the same note appears in more than one place. I mean, that was the same pitch, the same C, played in 3 different places on the fretboard. As you move from a lower position to a higher position of the same scale, then what you'll get is maybe a couple of extra high notes available to you at the expense of a couple of low notes, and vice versa. Now what I've added is a little semi-transparent outline of how those L shapes, that infinite pattern, is applying to the fretboard here. And what you can see is that the gap is changing things. I'll zoom in a little here. So we can see we've got the top 2 rows of an L, and then we move backwards, and then we start a new L, and then it gets distorted as we cross the gap. And here we've got a complete L, but the very top row of it is the other side of the gap, so it's just over 1 step to the right. That's just because we're travelling further. I mean, you know that low notes are down here and high notes are up here on the same string. So we've got to travel 1 fret extra to the right in the diagram, you know, higher up the neck, to compensate for the fact that those 2 strings are tuned slightly closer together. And so on and so on. The main focus of this video is meant to be fingering. So what I'll do is, if I find my little hand widget, there he is. Or her. So this is fingers 1, 2, 3, 4. Because remember, we're thinking this diagram, it's like having the guitar on your lap with the fretboard facing you. So the way that I would progress through this is I would use fingers 1, 3, stay at the same position, 1 finger per fret, 1, 3, and now I come to my first change of position. because I'm changing which instance of an L that I'm on. So my hand moves diagonally to here. Now I would go 1, 4, 1, 4, and then I reach my second change of position, which is because of a gap. So I move across like that, and then I'm back to 1, 3, 1, 3. I tend to always use fingers 1 and 4 in a rectangle and 1 and 3 in a square, because I find that's conducive to making a firm link between how you hear internally and how your hand moves. So you reach a point where actually when you hear a melody you can almost feel your hand twitching the way that it needs to move on the guitar fretboard in order to play it. I find that's the best way to become fluent at playing by ear, at improvising, at transcribing. And moving on to the next position, start here, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3. And that's me reached my first change of position, which is because of the gap. So my entire hand moves diagonally like that, 1, 3. And then immediately after that, I reached my next change of position, which is the L shape. And I go 1, 4. And then descending, I would go 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1. So you can see I've got 2 position changes. So if I show you that on the fretboard, you can see that I'm at the same position, in this case 8th position, all the way up to and including that 3rd string, but then I cross the gap and then I change position again as I change to the bottom of a new L that would kind of continue off the fretboard, so to speak. So it just means all the notes are under the fingers I expect them to. I won't go into this in too much detail, these next two. It's not very good use of your time for me to demonstrate that in too much detail, but I go 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, move back because of the change of L, 1, 4, move because of the gap, 1, 4, 1, 3, 3, 1, 4, 1, move because of the gap, 4, 1, move because of the L, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. And then here, I've got 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, 3, 1, move, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, move, 3, 1. I'll just demonstrate that one quickly. So, first move because of the L change. Move because of the gap. And that means I can really efficiently keep the muscle memory, you know. It's going to be the same movement there as it is. Now here's the kind of special case. Here, you know, the move where you would go that way because you're moving from the top of one L to the bottom of another, and the move because you're going over this space between the 2nd and 3rd strings where the strings are tuned together. They actually cancel each other out. So when you've got this pattern, which for a lot of people is the first scale that you ever learn on the guitar, maybe the last scale you ever learn on the guitar. It was the first one I learned. In that case, you're actually staying at first position the whole time. I guess that's partly why that scale is so popular, because you don't need to think about moving your hand. If you keep finger 1 dealing with these notes, finger 3 dealing with these notes, and finger 4 dealing with these notes, then you've got the whole thing covered and there's not too much additional muscle memory to it.